Today we are diving into our top 30 running back rankings for the 2024 fantasy football season. Before we dive into them, though, we're over on a new YouTube channel at The Fantasy Football Fellas. All of our podcast content will be moving over there, so if you're not subscribed already, make sure you do that. That is in the description down below. Again, youtube.com/@The Fantasy Football Fellas. Doing a little draft guide giveaway as well. Go subscribe, comment below on this video on that channel. We're picking one winner on each video for the rest of the summer. But Ty, let's dive on into these rankings here. We've got 30 of them to cover and not a lot of time to do it. So we're going to start in the S tier, which, to no surprise, by our consensus rankings, it's Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. Do you have any hesitations about CMC at the 101 this year? That is, for whatever reason, a hot topic in, I don't want to say a hot topic in the industry. It's being thrown out by some that CMC might not be the safest 101 as he has been in previous years.
I mean, that might be the case, but at the same time, you know that his ceiling is like the number one overall position player in all of fantasy football. Like that's the payoff. Like, we're going to talk about a guy that's going about 2 rounds later that, yeah, like the risk is pretty risky if, you know, another player kind of vultures some snaps and some carries away from him. But for Christian McCaffrey, he doesn't exactly have that. And yeah, like the big talking point is regression, but at the same time, if the regression doesn't hit, again, we're talking about like the best asset to have in fantasy football outside of like, you know, your mobile quarterbacks and stuff like that. So I think people are getting a little too cute with talking about Christian McCaffrey as a 102, 103 pick instead of the 101. Like, again, the payoff is massive for Christian McCaffrey again this year.
I mean, he did lead the league in touches last year, and there is some historical data that running backs who lead the league in touches, most recently Austin Eckler, take a big decline the following year. I just think we're looking at an entirely different animal with Christian McCaffrey than we are with the likes of Austin Eckler, than we are with the likes of guys in previous years, you know, Derrick Henry, when they led the league in touches as well. Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, where's your preference? I mean, I know your ranking says running back 2, but how close do you actually have him and Bijan Robinson?
It is very close. Let me actually pull this up. I have Breece outscoring Bijan by 9 points. So it's essentially just a touchdown. Yeah. Like that's essentially what it is. And I think like you can make the argument for Bijan that Bijan could get one more touchdown on Breece, and Bijan should be running back 2. Breece should be running back 3. Like, it really doesn't, you know, for me, it really doesn't matter between these two guys. These are guys that are going to be absolute workhorses, absolute bell cows, going to be super involved in their offenses, in the receiving game, in the rushing game. They're going to score points. You can't go wrong with either of these guys.
I have them. I didn't realize how similar I have them statted out. I mean, these guys were top 2 in targets last year at the running back position. Breece Hall drew 95. Bijan Robinson drew 86. And similar this year, I have Breece Hall taking a step back. I don't think, you know, it's going to be check down city with Aaron Rodgers. I still, he'll check down to Breece Hall plenty, but it's not going to be the 90, you know, nearly 100 mark as it was last year. But I have him down for 81. I have Bijan Robinson down for 82. I have Bijan Robinson catching 57 passes to Breece Hall 61. So these guys, for me, are statted out very, very similarly. And it's a difference of, again, basically the amount of receptions and the efficiency I think they will see on the ground. I have Breece Hall as the more efficient back, even though I have Bijan Robinson slated out for more fantasy points on the ground in the form of touchdown. So really, to pick your flavor between the two, you can't go wrong with either of those guys, but it is very clear in this S tier, it is Christian McCaffrey, it is Breece Hall, and it is Bijan Robinson, the 3 players who pretty much consensus around the industry are most likely to finish as the number 1 overall running back this year. Before we dive into the A tier, Ty, I want to give the people a quick reminder. You can listen to the podcast in a variety of ways, right? The most entertaining way that we say is to watch it over on YouTube, because not only do you get to hear the same conversation Ty and I are having right now, but you get this beautiful graphic as well, where we are sorting out all the players into tiers. There's a little bit more to look at, more that catches the eye. So you can watch over there, youtube.com/@the fantasy football fellas versus a podcast, right? You can listen to our podcast feed too. That's the other way. But again, you don't get all the pretty colors, the moving pictures over there. You can get our voices through the sound of your car, probably because you're driving. But those are the two main ways you can listen to the podcast: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from. You can listen on our podcast feed or over on YouTube at youtube.com/the fantasy football fellas.
I was gonna say, if you want to witness like total stunners and all that kind of stuff, watch it right now, because when Cam comes back from his unlimited PTO, the
quality goes down.
looks are just gonna just
quality goes down.
Sharp decline.
Sharp decline when Cameron comes back. Let's move on to the A tier, Ty. We have Jahmyr Gibbs at running back 4, Jonathan Taylor running back 5, Saquon at 6, De'Von Achane at 7, Kyren Williams at 8. I think the only player that for sure is locked into their spot here, if you ask me, is Jahmyr Gibbs at number 4. The other 4 running backs, you could put them in any order, and I'm not going to debate you on it.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, it did take him a little while to get going last year, but after week 10, when he became the leader in snaps in the backfield in Detroit, he was the running back 5 for the rest of the season. And the intrigue for Jahmyr Gibbs even this year, yes, David Montgomery is still in the backfield, and he'll likely take some goal line touches away from him. But Jahmyr Gibbs is pretty much is situated to be more involved in their receiving game this year. So you're adding in even more receiving upside with an explosive offense with his skill set. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs should be locked in as a top 5 running back at the least.
At the least. And again, this is the Detroit Lions team that is out for revenge this year. This is a Detroit Lions team that plays 14 of 17 games indoors this year. This is a Detroit Lions team that has Ben Johnson as their offensive coordinator still. This is a Lions team that has Jahmyr Gibbs entering his second year into the league, looking to make yet another leap, looking to maximize on the athleticism, the role that he can play in this offense while they still have him on a cheap contract. There is so much going in Jahmyr Gibbs' favor this year, and I agree. I think he'll continue to be plenty involved in the passing attack, but maybe the biggest thing is that he will start to get some of those red zone touches that David Montgomery seemed to be hogging for, at least the first half of the year. Jonathan Taylor is another name that I find fascinating here. He's our running back 5. He gets Anthony Richardson back. He doesn't bring Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson's bringing himself back, but Anthony Richardson's now back in the fold for this team. What maintains optimism for us on Jonathan Taylor? Because again, I have him at 5, Cam has him at 4, and you have him at 5. He's still a top 5 guy for us, but even with an Anthony Richardson coming back, why is there still optimism here?
I think you've brought it up in the past. It's the fact that that defenses will have to respect Anthony Richardson. So that just opens up even more opportunity for Jonathan Taylor in the rushing game. And we know that Jonathan Taylor isn't going to be a massive piece in the receiving game in the Shane Steichen offense. I mean, last year when Jonathan Taylor was active in this Steichen offense, he only had 19 receptions and 23 targets. So he does not have a major role in the receiving game. But you are betting on an elite runner getting a ton of volume because there is no one else in this backfield. And again, because of the Anthony Richardson threat that defenses have to take into account, again, it just opens the door for even more possibilities, for even more big plays, even more breakaway runs and stuff of that nature. So I know that some people may be scared off by Jonathan Taylor because of having a mobile quarterback, and like that will affect some things. Like you can't deny that. But again, we're talking about an elite rusher that got paid last year. Like there are plans for Jonathan Taylor in this offense.
I mean, we all have Jonathan Taylor statted out to see between 9 to 12 touchdowns. You have him at 9. Cam has him at the high end at 12. I have him at 10. And this is a guy who, like you said, is going to see a majority of the running back touches in this backfield. So that's what maintains optimism there. But again, you could throw in a Saquon Barkley, a De'Von Achane, a Kyren Williams ahead of him. Out of those 3, do you have a preference? Because once we get past those 5, that's where I think the conversation really starts for this tier, because you could make an anti-argument for all three of those guys. I could also make a pro argument for all three.
Yeah, I actually kind of prefer Devon Achane here. I like Kyren Williams, middle of the second round to early second round. Like that's I mean, again, he was the guy that I was referring to when I was talking about risk with Christian McCaffrey. Like the risk with Kyren is that like injuries will continue to linger and that Blake Corum starts, it starts taking away snaps and carries and touches from Kyren Williams. It's a possibility. I don't think it'll likely happen, but it's a possibility. Saquon Barkley, for me, I don't have a problem with him, being Saquon Barkley in terms of the rusher. My question is just the receiving work in this offense, because Jalen Hurts has typically just not been a guy that likes to just check the ball down or get the running backs involved in the passing attack. Kellen Moore might change things up, and I could be eating my words here, 3 months from now. So kind of by process of elimination here, like I kind of land with Achane because I think Achane has an opportunity to overtake Raheem Mostert to be the 1A at the least in this offense. And with his explosiveness and what we saw last year, like why can't he, explode again this year in a more full-time role?
So I want to lay out I mentioned having a pro and an anti argument for all three of these guys, because I'm going to start with this. I think if you're playing not to lose, you draft Saquon Barkley. If you are playing to smoke your league mates, you draft Devon Achane. If you're like, I want the upside, but there is some risk baked in here, I think you draft Kyren Williams. It's weird to say that Kyren Williams feels like the safest one of the three. I don't even think that. I think Kyren Williams has like he's second in safety among the three, and this goes into my anti arguments for each, right? Because for Saquon Barkley, the anti argument is, well, Jalen Hurts is still there. He's not going to see the rushing touchdowns. If Jalen Hurts is still going to be a thief around the goal line, he's not going to see 10 plus rushing touchdowns like he possibly could. He's going to be stuck in that 7 to 8 range probably. Case for Devon Achane, or the anti case for Devon Achane, is a dude is made of glass, right? We saw that last year. Can play a full season, and any given week, all he has to do is take a hit from a linebacker, and you're immediately worried if the dude is okay. And Kyren Williams, obviously, Blake Corum is the main fodder there. But at the same time, Blake Corum feels like the least of my concerns when I look at all three of these players. Is that fair to say?
I think so. Just because I think Sean McVay does ask a lot of his running backs in this Rams offense. Like I mean, we go all the way back to like Todd Gurley, right? Like he asked the most out of Todd Gurley, and it pretty much like cost him his career. Can I just go that far? And then he couldn't really find a guy after Todd Gurley, because then we're rotating through Darrell Henderson, we're rotating through Sony Michel. I'm probably forgetting like 2 or 3 other running backs, but CJ Anderson, right? Like he brought in CJ Anderson. Yeah, like he was rotating guys through because he couldn't really like trust any one of them to do the entire job. Then he found Kyren last year, and Kyren kind of took over, that backfield, and he was the running back 2 in fantasy points per game. Like Kyren is in some weird way, like Kyren's job is pretty safe, but at the same time, one unlucky bounce here or there, and Blake Corum is then suddenly more involved in the game plan and stuff like that. So it's kind of the to call it a risk with Kyren Williams feels too like generalized. Like there has to be a more
Slightly
specific,
harsh too.
Yeah, like there has to be a more like specific way to describe Kyren Williams this year, other than just he's a risk.
He's a risk, but he's not. Like it's a classic. Like I can't tell you why he's not 100% a risk, but I can't also tell you why he's 100% not a risk.
Because here's the thing: if he was 100% not a risk, why wouldn't Kyren Williams be in the S tier?
S tier, 100%. And that's the only reason why that keeps him in the A tier, the end of the A tier in our rankings. And frankly, like I just adjusted my rankings today. I mean, I moved Kyren in. He was sitting right at running back 10 for me. I moved him up to running back 8. And the more I keep looking at the running backs in this tier, the more I keep looking how I have this Rams offense statted out. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if Kyren Williams continues to climb in my rankings and he does end up being one of my favorite picks in drafts this year, even if I have to take him in the middle of the second round. If I compare him with an AJ Brown, if I compare him with, if he wraps all the way back around to when I'm taking an Amon Ra, a Justin Jefferson, oh my gosh, please and thank you. I will gladly take that. So, I like Kyren feels like the one in this tier that, yeah, he's at the bottom, but nobody's going to be surprised if he ends up in the S tier at the end of the season. Saquon Barkley feels the least likely to do that, I would say, in this tier.
Yeah, if any,
Which
like
is the play not to lose scenario.
So it's so like in the weirdest way, like if we're going from like highest floor to lowest floor, Saquon's got the highest floor, Achane then Kyren, would you say, or would you say Kyren then Achane?
Floor wise,
Yeah, floor wise.
Saquon highest, then Kyren, then Achane. Achane by far has the lowest floor. Injury risk.
And then the highest ceiling is then
Achane, Kyren.
Right, like it's inverse. Like it's
inverse,
right. The opposite. Like that's how awkward these three running backs are.
Let's put a bow on that there. We could debate these three all day. Let's move to the B tier, where I think we do open up a really big can of worms here. Because you get Travis Etienne kicking off for us at our running back 9, Isaiah Pacheco at running back 10, James Cook running back 11, Kamara at 12, Derrick Henry at 13. Travis Etienne is a name that people really, really like this year. I mean, phenomenal 2023 season, right? I mean, 267 for just over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, caught 58 to 73 targets, caught another touchdown through the air as well. Running back 3 overall, running back 7 in fantasy points per game. And there's not a lot that makes you think anything's going to be different this year. Yet he finds himself lower than where he finished last year. Give me the odds that Travis Etienne finishes ahead of ADP. Is it like a 60-40, 70-30? Give me your odds.
I would say like 60-40 probably, just because I think, when you look at the guys ahead of him right now, like in ADP, there's maybe one or two guys that I think maybe finish below ETN. So I don't want to say it's like, completely out of the realm of possibilities, but at the same time, like we do just have to admit that 267 carries last year, 58 receptions. Math is not my strong suit today, but that's over 330 touches, right? Like 320 touches. Like I doubt we see that again from ETN, just because that Jacksonville offense last year was going through so much of just injuries and inconsistencies and all those kind of things, that ETN was the one consistent thing. Now that they've kind of revamped and reworked this offense, again, I don't think ETN sees 320 touches, which is what the touchdowns also helps. But again, like I would say it's a possibility that he can again finish above ADP, but at the same time, like there are things kind of working against him that he could regress a little bit that keeps him in this like 9 to 12 range.
So it was a tale of two halves, for Travis Etienne. Very similar to Tua Tagovailoa last year. Give me a guess of where you think Travis Etienne was in weeks 1 through 8 before their bye last year.
Running back 24.
Well, overall, before the bye. Sorry.
Before the bye?
Before the bye, yes. Sorry. Did I say after the bye? I meant before.
No, you said before. I don't know.
He was the running back 3 overall before the bye. Now take a guess after the bye. I'll give you a hint. Your first guess was very close.
Whoa, running back 22.
He was running back 18 after the bye.
Okay.
That was let me recorrect that. That was in standard formats. I'm now looking at PPR
Oh.
formats. Hey, hell, Matt's a 2-minute minor right
Host
there.
host
That's a
mistake.
rookie mistake. Rookie mistake. No, after the bye, Travis Etienne was the running back 15 in PPR formats. Not much better, which I think is, if we're honest, is really baked in at his current ADP of running back 9 right now, right? We're shooting the gap with that. Travis Etienne, the running back 2 in PPR formats before the bye, the running back 15 after the bye. And look, I think this is a great note from Derek Brown over at Fantasy Pros. The Jaguars' offensive line last year, they finished 32nd in fantasy points rush grade and adjusted yards before contact per attempt. That's not great efficiency wise for Travis Etienne. And it's not like they went out and made major improvements this offseason. So Travis Etienne is a guy where I don't think we're going to see the efficiency. It'll have to come through touchdowns. It'll have to come through the air. And you better hope this Jaguars offense is clicking on all cylinders this year, because when Travis Etienne wasn't scoring the touchdowns, you were paying the price in fantasy last year.
Does this comparison make sense to you at all? Like, I know that Najee's rookie season was like outlier of all outliers in terms of volume and stuff like that. But is ETN like Walmart Najee in the sense that like he was in a very advantageous situation just for himself that he capitalized on last year, and there's a chance that just inefficiency, decrease in volume for whatever be the reason for the upcoming season, like does that comparison make sense? Is that a fair one, you think?
I follow. I think the big difference between those two is that you saw the targets dip. I mean, Najee's targets have drastically dipped every season. And I don't think you're going to see that with ETN. I think you're still going to see the receiving volume. I think the touchdowns is where the question comes into play here. Will he rush for will he score 12 total this year? Give me the odds on that. Like, let's set a what would you put? Plus 300?
Yeah, I'd even say like 350, 400.
I'm going to see if there's odds for that out there that I can pull. But while I do that, we can come back to that. Let's take a quick break, because there's a lot of guys in this tier that we find a lot of value in. We've talked about a lot of them already. Before we do, why don't we go ahead and take a quick break? Today's podcast episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, where it is best ball summer. There are 5 core best ball tournaments to play in, with over $20 million up for grabs this summer. You can even take a crack at winning the top prize of $1.5 million in their infamous Best Ball Mania 5 contest. To enter, head to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and use the code FELLAS to get a first deposit bonus up to $250 and our 2024 draft guide for free. Again, head to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and use code FELLAS to sign up. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit npcgambling.org. Alrighty, we are back, and we have so far talked about our running backs in the S tier: Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. In the A tier: Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane, and Kyren Williams. We've so far talked about Travis Etienne in the B tier. And when we went to break, Ty and I decided it would be a good idea to actually go and look and see where Etienne is projected at for touchdowns this year over on the sport books and our friends with Underdog Fantasy. Ty, you said Travis Etienne's rushing touchdown player projection on Underdog is 6.5 touchdowns.
6.5 for the entirety of the season.
That there is a big discrepancy there compared to that. Yeah. That is nearly only half of what he had last year. He had 11 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne might be I don't want to. He might be a faller in my rankings. I have him as my running back 12 currently with 8 touchdowns. Look, I'm not basing everything off of. I'm not basing all my projections off of sportsbooks, but that's concerning to me. That sets off an alarm.
Yeah, like are they thinking that last year is an outlier in terms of the scoring, which is certainly possible, but even 6.5, like you need 7. He
Yeah.
can still get 7 or 8, but like again, for as much as people will value and like him just because of what he did last year, like that, I feel like that's a line that like we need to like show other people that are in on ETN. It's like, hey, some people know something that we don't.
Yep.
Take a look at this.
Yeah, let's talk about the rest of the guys in this tier. We spent a lot of time on ETN. Isaiah Pacheco is a guy you and I both like. Cam has him down at running back 13. Glad he's not here to talk about Isaiah Pacheco. You and I both have Isaiah Pacheco as a top 10 running back this year. Currently goes off the board as the running back 11, early third round. I'm totally fine scooping up value there. He even goes lower on Underdog Fantasy. He goes as a running back 13 in best ball drafts right now. For a guy who was averaging 20 touches per game in the playoffs, for a guy who was insanely hot to close out the season, averaging 18 plus fantasy points per game. This is a guy I am all over in drafts this year, especially if we think the Kansas City Chiefs are taking a step forward on offense and are going to be in scoring position more often. The main benefactor of that is Isaiah Pacheco. There is an immense amount of touchdown opportunity here for him.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that this offense played as well as it did when they started incorporating Isaiah Pacheco more into the game plan, not just in the rushing attack, but in the passing attack. For Isaiah Pacheco to get 44 receptions on just 49 targets last year, that's exactly what we were hoping to see for the guy, because that's what we were questioning going into last year.
Jerick McKinnon isn't around either.
Correct.
You're going to free up some sneaky pass catching opportunities for Isaiah Pacheco, and we saw that start to unfold at the tail end of last season. So I think not only are you going to get touchdown opportunities, I think you're going to see Pacheco potentially involved in the receiving game a bit more as well, which again, I think just sky's the limit for him. I am very content taking him ahead of Travis Etienne, or frankly, letting other people take Travis Etienne so I can take Isaiah Pacheco after they take Travis Etienne. Let's talk. Look, James Cook. I think the main thing for James Cook, and we'll keep this one short, is I don't think the rushing touchdowns are going to be there. Do I think he scores more than 2? Yes. I believe I have James Cook statted out for I only have him statted out for 4 rushing touchdowns this year. But what I think we're going to see is when Stephon Diggs leaves and he vacates, a crap ton of targets. Yeah, you need to distribute them up between Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid. We've also seen that some of those start to trickle down to the running back position as well. And when Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator, James Cook was a focal point of this offense. So I think you're going to see James Cook see not a massive uptick in the receiving game, but you're going to start to see him thrive in that area of the offense more.
I love James Cook for the fact that you might despise this take that I have. This is a very similar argument and take for if you're in on Alvin Kamara, you should also be in on James Cook.
No, I like this take. This is an accurate take.
You're not drafting these guys for their efficiency or for their scoring upside. You're drafting these guys because they're going to get the ball a crap ton in their offenses. Like if we're where James Cook goes in drafts right now, running back 14, middle of the 4th round, that's pretty good value for a guy that is going to get the ball a ton in this offense.
No, I like that take because you're not banking on efficiency for Kamara. You're not banking on touchdowns, high volume touchdowns. You're banking on the fact that these quarterbacks are going to keep their running backs involved in the offense through checkdowns, through plenty of touches as the lead back in their offenses. Maybe not 250, but again, let's take a look at where I have them projected for. I do have James Cook projected for the lion's share of the touches, 200, almost 429, 249 rush attempts. But I have him drawing 68 targets, right? Alvin Kamara, I only have him 20 less carries than James Cook, but I have him seeing a crap ton of targets. And I think that's where you're going to start to see the production come for James Cook this year, is some of those targets are going to trickle down to him. Derrick Henry is the last player we'll talk about here, Ty. And again, thank goodness Cameron isn't here to talk about him because he has him all the way up at the running back 8. I don't know if that was worthy of the.
I just had
Of the
that's
horn.
just a little dig I can. That's all it is. It's not
When
about
he-
the take. It's just Cam the person, you know.
when he comes back on. Lucas with Tyler and Cam who play the horn every time he comes back on. No.
Every time.
Look, you and I have Derrick Henry down at running back 13. This is very similar to a Saquon case, right? You got a mobile quarterback who's going to need to rush the football as well. Could Derrick Henry score a crap ton of touchdowns this year? Yes, I have him scoring double-digit touchdowns. The problem is he is an old running back where, I'm not saying this is going to be the year the wheels fall off, but I don't always think, it's going to be sunshine and roses just because he goes to Baltimore. There's a lot of other young backs who are going to be involved in the passing game of their offenses that, they're not going to see 280 rush attempts like Derrick Henry will. But this is a case where receiving work matters in fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the days of 13 plus touchdowns for Derrick Henry are over at this point, just because of the offense that he's in and the fact that he is 30 years old. Like going from Tennessee, where Mike Vrabel literally just said, like, I literally don't want to do anything. We're just going to give Derrick Henry the ball, and that's how we're going to run our offense. Like, now going to Baltimore, yes, they will put up points, but we're not good. I think the other thing is, yeah, we're not going to see like 13 plus touchdowns in a season from Derrick Henry. I don't think we're going to see like 250 carries. And if we do, honestly, to me, that is like a miracle because again, the guy has got so much tread on his tires. And in this kind of offense, this offense is not really designed for a running back to get more than 250 carries, in my opinion.
Which is ironic because you have Derrick Henry statted out for 269.
So here's
but I get the point you're saying, though. I get the point you're saying. Is I have him statted out the highest out of the three of us for 282. I don't think that's a guarantee. That is like best case scenario for Derrick Henry is that he continues to get fed and fed and fed in this Baltimore Ravens offense. I think there is a real possibility he only sees 255, 265 carries this year. So I think that is a legitimate point that maybe some people don't want to admit. We'll wrap out the B tier there, Ty. Let's move to the C tier and keep things clicking here. Rachaad White, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker make up the C tier. Can we label this tier guys I'm not excited to draft except for Rachaad White? Can we just call this tier that? I'm not excited to draft any of them.
Well, I think you could stretch it to say like this is the tier that like you probably like only one guy in this tier, and that's fine. Like for me, I personally prefer Joe Mixon to Rachaad White, but I understand the argument for really one of these guys over the others.
Give me the Joe Mixon over Rachaad White take, because this is interesting because I prefer Rachaad White to Joe Mixon, and I don't want to say it's not close, but I say that with a decent amount of confidence.
I think it's for two reasons, and this will sound more anti Rachaad White than it will be like pro Joe Mixon. For me, I think the loss of Dave Canales is going to hurt Rachaad White a lot. I mean, even just in the few press conferences that Canales has had in Carolina, there's one specifically that has kind of been quoted a lot by a lot of other people. But like Canales straight up said, like, I can't wait to show you guys like how stubborn I am when it comes to the run game. Like the dude does rely on the run game fairly or for a lot. I don't know if Liam Cohen is going to do that at the same rate. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I know you're not the biggest Bucky Irving fan,
I'm not.
But the team did not
I
need to.
couldn't be more out on him now. I'm serious. I'm gonna have Pete Overzet on for our best ball stream next week. He's gonna want to draft Bucky Irving, and I'm gonna swallow my pride. We're gonna draft Bucky Irving, but I'm not a fan. I'm not. Continue.
I don't. But again, like that's why you're in a Rachaad White. For me, I think Bucky Irving was taken, in the draft by Tampa Bay because this team isn't exactly sold on Rachaad White being like the guy in their offense. Like last year, yeah, like he had 272 rushing attempts, a little under 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and had 64 receptions. That's awesome. But what it signals to me is just not an efficient back. And the fact is, this is another 320 yard or 320 touch running back. I think there's just maybe a little bit of a step back in the amount of usage for Rachaad White in this Liam Cohen offense. Bucky Irving maybe takes some of the receiving work, makes enough of a dent to like impact Rachaad White's outlook. So again, like that's for me, that's what it really comes down to. If you are if you think Bucky Irving is going to be involved, then Rachaad White might not be your guy. But if you think that Rachaad White, or if you don't think that Bucky Irving is really like that great of a talent or is as big of a threat as he could be, then you're in on Rachaad White.
I mean, I still have Bucky Irving started out for 101 carries this year to Rachaad White's 235. Yet I still have Rachaad White coming in ahead of Joe Mixon because I think he stays involved in the passing attack still. Which for me, I think is the biggest thing. Not that I think Joe Mixon won't be involved in, the Texans passing game, but the sheer difference in volume, the sheer difference in weapons each team has. Yeah, Houston might be more pass happy, but when you got Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz all to feed, and in Tampa, you've got Mike Evans, you've got, Chris Godwin will move back to the slot, but then Rachaad White is the guy who's going to be catching the ball out of the backfield. And I don't know if you saw today, Todd Bowles came out and really emphasized when we want running backs who can do everything. And by everything, that includes pass protection. Do you want to know who stinks in pass pro, Ty?
Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I look, Bucky, you're a great guy here. But I just don't see the fit with Tampa Bay with a clear head. If something happens to Rachaad White, Bucky Irving could absolutely step in, but this feels like, feels a little Alexander Madison-ish. Oh. We all want the guy behind the starting running back. We do. But then when he gets the opportunity, what if he needs to be taken off the field? Like Ty Chandler-ish. That was the correct.
Yeah, more. I get what you're going for, though.
But you get where I was going with that. We're clamoring for Ty Chandler, but he can't be on the field in pass pro, which is just going to lead to Alexander Madison getting more and more touches that disappoint fantasy managers. That's how I feel about Bucky Irving.
Yeah. And I, you also have to, at least acknowledge the fact that like Bucky Irving might have been drafted just for a special teams, idea because of the new kickoff rules. Right. So like, that might be why they went out and got a Bucky Irving. So it really, for Rachaad White, it really does kind of come back to like, is he going to be as involved as he was last year? But for me, when it comes to Bucky Irving, we are talking about a guy that some may say is a special player, special teams,
special plays, special players.
I knew where that was going to.
I had to kind of set that one up because I wanted to use it, but for Rachaad White, it comes back to Bucky Irving. If you think if he gets the same utilization as he did last year, then you're in on Rachaad White.
So we've talked a lot about Josh Jacobs. We're not fans of Josh Jacobs at ADP. These tiered rankings would show that. We're not going to beat a dead horse with Josh Jacobs. You can go listen to a multitude of other videos of ours, players that we think people are overvaluing in drafts right now. And if you're watching over on our previous channel where we were hosting all of our podcast content, we have done multiple videos on why we're not fans of Josh Jacobs at his current running back 12. Price tag Aaron Jones and Ken Walker are going in the same-ish range. Ken Walker, running back 16, Aaron Jones, running back 19. I think the big thing that worries me about Aaron Jones is that not a clean track record of health. I'm not convinced this Minnesota run offense is going to be any good this year. They might sit back and say, hey, Sam Darnold, prove that you can actually beat an NFL defense. When JJ McCarthy comes in, hey, JJ McCarthy, go ahead, chuck the ball around the yard. I prefer Ken Walker to Aaron Jones. My rankings don't reflect that, but they're going to when I go back and make some adjustments on Aaron Jones. Again, two guys I don't draft, and I'm like, heck yes. But they're also guys where I'm like, in this range, if I need a running back two, they're like the unsexy picks, and I'm like, they're fine additions. I'm just not thrilled about either of them. I don't really buy a bull case for either player.
No, like if I'm looking for a second running back and these are the two options, I'm probably going to pass, to be completely honest. Like Aaron Jones getting up there in age with an injury history in a Minnesota offense that hasn't really supported, you know, I don't want to say relevant, a good fantasy asset outside of Dalvin Cook 2 years ago. So things are kind of working against Aaron Jones, in my opinion. And then Kenneth Walker, like we talk about Ryan Grubb coming over from Washington in his offense. I don't know if Ken Walker's like skill set is exactly like a great match for this offense. Like Ken Walker is still going to be involved because he is still one of the more talented runners in the league, but he's just not going to get the value touches that you want out of running backs. So I'm probably looking later if I'm looking for a second running back.
Right. And I think we can look to this next tier of players for another one of those running backs. Because you're right. I would much rather wait for a Jalen Warren, for a James Conner. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, you don't have to wait as much for. But DeAndre Swift, same. But like Zach Moss, maybe. Monty, if he starts to slide down boards a little bit. Jonathan Brooks, especially. He's maybe not the most ideal running back two for your team, but there is a case there for Jonathan Brooks. So this is a massive tier tie. And there's going to be no way that we talk about every single one of the players in this tier. So I'll say this. We have talked about Ramondre Stevenson on past episodes. We have talked about Zach Moss on past episodes. We've talked about Jonathan Brooks on past episodes. We talked about Jalen Warren on past episodes. The guys we really haven't talked about in this tier are James Conner, DeAndre Swift, and David Montgomery. So let's do this. Let's do the speed recap. We all like Jalen Warren at cost this year. I'm a big fan of Jalen Warren at cost this year. Ramondre, I am out on. You two are still in on Ramondre. You still have some hope. Zach Moss, I'm more bullish on than you two are. But again, when you're looking at Zach Moss as I pull up his ADP, when you're looking at Zach Moss as a running back 25, for me, I think that's a fine value. I'm okay with Zach Moss there. And then Jonathan Brooks, we've talked about him being a second half of the season league winner once he's returned from injury in a Carolina Panthers offense, where, as you said earlier in the show, Ty, Dave Canales said, I'm going to show you how stubborn I can be running the football this year. Let's talk about James Conner, though. What I don't think people realize is that in the final 6 weeks, 13 to 18 last season, James Conner was averaging nearly 24 fantasy points per game in PPR formats. Yeah. You didn't know that? You didn't watch my TikTok?
Well, no, I knew that. I was just reacting as if I was the audience. You say what? You say 24?
I say 24. The dude was on fire. You now get a fully healthy Arizona Cardinals offense. Now, I'm not going to sit here and James Conner is going to give you a A-tier finish in fantasy football. Dude's got to stay healthy to prove that. But when you're drafting him at cost right now, he's the running back 20. I'm very okay with that ADP. I'm very okay with that. I'm perfectly happy having James Conner as my running back too. And frankly, I think he might actually be going later on Sleeper. Let me pull up that ADP, but give me your thoughts on James Conner this year. I'm fine being bullish on James Conner. My ranking doesn't reflect it, But when I go back and again, when I make these tweaks throughout the offseason, James Conner is going to be a guy who rises up my rankings.
I believe that James Conner will be the lead back for the majority of the season in this Arizona offense. You do have to acknowledge, he will miss some time during the season. He always does. He's good to miss at least 2 to 3 games a year. But in this Arizona offense, led by Drew Petzing, who, just as a friendly reminder to the people, before Petzing took this job in Arizona, do you know where he was? In Cleveland.
Yeah.
With Kevin Stefanski, with Nick Chubb, right? And even before then, do you know where he was before Cleveland? He was in Minnesota with another workhorse back. So Drew Petzing utilizes a one-back system very, very frequently. Now, yes, they did go out and draft Trey Benson in the draft, and I'm a big Trey Benson guy. I don't think that this is going to be a 50-50 split right off the rip. I think this is going to be a James Conner backfield for the majority of the season. And the what makes this even better for me, at least when it comes to James Conner, right? I've got him as my running back 19 right now. You said from week 13 until the end of the season, he was averaging 24 points or whatever, whatever range it was. Guess who was also playing with him in that stretch?
Kyler
Murray. So it's not even like these guys are going to be working against each other or taking away from each other. They were both working and cooking together, right? So I'm a big fan with James Conner at his cost this year. I'm hoping that people just continue to sleep on him just because, again, I'm expecting this Arizona offense to be better. And I know that he's going to be heavily utilized because that's how this offense operates.
Only 7 touchdowns for James Conner in 13 games last year. If we believe this Arizona Cardinals offense is going to be better and in scoring position more often, I think you're going to see that touchdown number increase. James Conner's averaging also 5 yards per carry last year. This was an efficient running back. And I think if this passing game is opened up, they're in scoring position more often. We could be talking about James Conner as a C, borderline B tier player at the end of the season who easily outperforms his running back 20 ADP. He goes as the running back 24 on ESPN. That's the platform I was thinking of. DeAndre Swift. Okay, I lied. I know we haven't talked about him much. He doesn't excite me, though. I actually think he's an easy fade at cost. I don't have a lot of DeAndre Swift.
I feel like fade is kind of harsh because he is going as a low end running back too. So it's like, how much are we exactly like fading him? But
I mean, you have him at running back 27.
Yeah, I mean that's I feel like that's like very, very like that's as low as the floor could ever get for DeAndre Swift in this offense. Like I would say like, again, where he goes in drafts right now, maybe the best way to say it is this. I just don't know what his upside is. And I think that's an easy reason for me to avoid him, just where he goes or where he's going to be going. Like, I just don't know what his upside is.
Yeah, not that is the big thing for DeAndre Swift. I can paint you the upside for Jaylen Warren. I can paint you the upside for James Conner. Shoot, I can paint you the upside for Ramondre Stevenson. What is the upside case for DeAndre Swift? He's not a goal line back. He's a back who is primarily efficient on the ground. The Bears are building out their offensive line, but let's not act like it is the Detroit Lions offensive line. Let's not act like it is one of the top 5 offensive lines in the NFL. And he thrives in the receiving game, where you now have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. You just spent the 9th overall pick on Rome Odunze. It's not like DeAndre Swift is going to see enough targets to elevate him to top 20 status in my mind. So I'm very much out on DeAndre Swift at cost, unless if he, slides past the likes of, into the Zach Moss, Zamir White kind of range, who we'll get into in a moment. I agree. I don't see the upside here for DeAndre Swift. David Montgomery is the last name we'll talk about, Ty. Speaking of not seeing the upside, the thing with David Montgomery, though, is that, again, you are betting on a good offense. You are betting on a team that's going to be in scoring position often. You are betting on a guy who hit double-digit touchdowns last year, who was still getting 15 rush attempts per game with Jahmyr Gibbs in the fold. You are getting guaranteed rushing volume. You are getting a goal line back for sure. That might be it, because it's going to take a Jahmyr Gibbs injury, unfortunately, I think, for David Montgomery to play a bigger role. I don't mind him at where he's going right now. The running back 19 is slightly rich for me, but I'm okay doing it if I just need a safety valve at the running back position.
Yeah, like he's the ideal guy. Like if again, we had talked about like Aaron Jones and Ken Walker. If you're looking at one of those two guys to be your running back too, I'm passing and looking at David Montgomery. Just a guy that's going to be steady. Like I don't need, not exactly hoping for 14, 15, 16 a week, but hey, if he does, awesome. And then again, on the chance that let's say Jahmyr Gibbs misses time, David Montgomery steps into a very, very elite role. So there's upside if things kind of play into his favor, but on a week-to-week basis, like you do know that he's going to get like 13, 14 carries a game, and he's probably going to find the end zone every other week.
Let's wrap it out with the the E tier. Goodness. It is late at night. It is 9:30 on Wednesday evening, and this is coming out first thing Thursday. The E tier tie. We'll wrap it out here. Tony Pollard, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, Amir White, Raheem Mostert. Can we call this the tier?
Yes. Well, yes.
No, yes. I've been more pro Zamir White. I am very quickly cooling off on Zamir White at cost. Which feels ironic to say because I'm still in on Zach Moss. I think I believe in the Cincinnati Bengals offense more than I do the Las Vegas Raiders offense. That's how I'm going to wash my hands of calling myself out on Zamir White now compared to Zach Moss. Tony Pollard is also the guy I don't like in this range, but you can go ahead and pound that nail into my chest. But I just think he and Tyjae Spears could just end up, foddering into one another's touches and really not doing any good for the other.
I feel like this E tier is like, again, I don't want to use the Walmart analogy again, but like the E tier is the Walmart C tier. Like how we talked about C tier is like, you like one of these guys. You don't like all of them, but you like one of them.
You like one of them.
This E tier is very similar. You only like one of these guys. You don't like all of them, but you definitely have one guy in this tier that you're like, yeah, I kind of like this guy. Every time he kind of comes around and drafts, I'm like,
I like him. That is you know what? That is true. And we don't have the same player in this tier, do we?
No.
Because yours is Tony Pollard.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't want to sound so confident with that one. But I would leave.
It's Walmart confidence. Come on.
Yeah, it's Walmart confidence. I'll stand on that. Yeah, it's Walmart confidence in Tony Pollard.
Mine's Raheem Mostert.
See, I figured just process of elimination. I know you're not a Najee guy. You would literally just talk yourself out of Zamir White. So we're looking at Javonte and Mostert, and you're like, give me my.
And I'm very quickly talking myself out of Javonte too. I mean, I'm the lowest on Javonte out of the three of us. I do think he's going running back 34 on Underdog right now. I think that's a little bit harsh with the Javonte Williams might not make the team. Albert,
can I just say real quick?
Yes, please do.
If he gets out of Denver,
is that the worst thing?
It's like we should be kind of hoping for this. Like, obviously, we don't want people to lose their jobs and stuff, but like Javonte goes to a better team and situation if he gets out of Denver. So it's like, actually, like Sean Payton, like you could help us out here. Like that would be awesome.
Per Benjamin Albright today on Twitter. In other Broncos news, the Javonte Williams obituaries were hilariously premature. Took the first reps in every drill. I think P. Ryan has the toughest climb.
Oh, yeah. If there was one running back that was like actually like for sure out the door, it was Samaje P. Ryan.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I think look, those who knew ball knew Javonte Williams wasn't going to get the boot on this team. It would be a shock to them if Javonte got the boot. Everybody has been saying Samaje Perine's the boogeyman, even for free agency, for guys like Zach Moss, for guys like Zamir White throughout the entire offseason. And let's just be honest, it'd be silly for the Saints coaching staff to cut Javonte over Samaje Perine. Just looking at the difference in talent between these guys. I get Javonte's not a Sean Payton regime guy, but man, to me, that's just poor football analysis. That's just being stubborn. And Sean Payton can be stubborn, but I think that's like stupid stubborn.
Yeah, but hey, you know what, Sean Payton, if you're going to move off of Javonte Williams, I know a team way up north that wears purple that would love Javonte Williams.
I agree. I want to go back to Tony Pollard though, because he's your guy. I mean, this is how we'll wrap up. We'll each kind of give our pro take on the guys that we want in this tier. Yours is Tony Pollard, mine's Raheem Mostert. Give me the bull argument for Tony Pollard, despite me disagreeing with it.
I just feel like we're kind of like, it's not that we're penalizing him for last year, but I think like we're like double counting like how bad this Tennessee offense could be in his ADP. Like he's going to running back 26. So maybe like high end running back 3, low end running back 2 is like the right range for him. I think this is more so just kind of like speaking to you because you've got him as your running back 34.
I see him in the same tier as Tyjae Spears.
Oh gosh, that one.
They're
that
both
one I don't
backs.
agree with.
They're both going to play similar roles in this Brian Callahan pass first offense.
Yeah, I know that. I know that this is a split backfield. They've already come out and said that. For me, with Tony Pollard, I just think that Pollard is the better running back to compare to Spears. That's not to say that like this will be a one-man backfield, but I do think like we're going to be seeing just a slight. I almost said slight. It's
I
late.
heard that. It is late.
I feel like we're going to see a slight like preference to Tony Pollard in most situations. I think goal line is going to be Tony Pollard. I think early down work will be Tony Pollard. Yeah, it's not going to be like, it's not going to be a huge amount of volume because again, this is going to be a pretty pass happy team. But I think Tony Pollard still involved enough. He did get a bag. Like we do have to admit, if we're going to follow the money, we got to follow the money. So I feel like for me with Tony Pollard, like I feel like out of this tier of guys, like Pollard probably has like one of the safer floors. Out of this tier of guys, again, that I don't know what exactly like their ceiling is. Like I know Mostert probably has a high ceiling, but I don't really know what his ceiling is with Achane going into year 2.
So I think that's the thing that I like about Mostert though, is that people are just looking at him and they're saying he's old and fragile. He's not going to repeat last year, so I don't want him, period. But this is going to be an explosive Miami Dolphins offense that's still going to be in scoring position often. And are we sure Devon Achane is going to handle the majority of the goal line work? This is like discount David Montgomery, if you're asking me, where you're drafting Devon Achane and Jahmyr Gibbs in the same tier. Why aren't we drafting David Montgomery and Raheem Mostert in the same tier? Guys who can catch the football out of the backfield, are explosive, will probably be the more efficient runners, but may just end up being the primary goal line backs. And this is where I think you do see Raheem Mostert cede some work to Devon Achane in comparison to Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, in that you do see Devon Achane take some of the goal line work. But I think to discount Raheem Mostert to a point where he's going near the running back 30, he's going the back half of the 20s. Like if worse comes to worse, and I like just punt running back as long as I can, and then Raheem Mostert is what's left as my running back 2, and I already have a Breece Hall, a Bijan Robinson, I'll take that, because to me it's a very similar David Montgomery argument. If Devon Achane is out, Raheem Mostert is a locked and loaded running back 1. If Devon Achane's in the fold, yeah, you're probably limited to early down work and goal line work. But what's the difference between the two in that regard? They're both explosive offenses. They both are going to play similar roles with more efficient and more explosive and younger running backs ahead of them.
I would really love going one of the top 8 running backs as your running back 1, getting David Montgomery as your running back 2, and Raheem Mostert as your running back 3.
Yeah.
Like
2 safety valves right there.
Yeah. Like you don't need to shoot for upside if you get one of those top 8 guys, because again, you're getting it with those guys. So just getting a guaranteed 12, 13 a week with then the chance and upside to give you like 18, 19, depending on what happens around them. Like, I feel like that's a really nice strategy to go with.
We'll put a bow on the top 30 running back rankings there, Ty. We're going to come back next week with our top 30 wide receiver rankings. Again, we are on a new home, though, over on YouTube, youtube.com/@thefantasyfootballfellas. Make sure you're subscribed over there. Comment below on this video over there when you do subscribe, because you'll be entered to win a free copy of our 2024 Fantasy Football Fellas Draft Guide. We are choosing one commenter per video for the rest of the offseason to give away our draft guide to. So again, youtube.com/@thefantasyfootballfellas. Subscribe, comment below on the most recent video over there. We'll be choosing one winner per video for the rest of the offseason. You can follow us on the socials. I am at Lucas Wencl on Twitter. That is WENC as in cat L. Tyler_Plath for Tyler. You can follow the fellas as well. FF Fellas on Twitter. The FF Fellas on Instagram. Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. We'll be back next week. Wide receiver rankings, 30 of them in tiers, plus our tight end rankings in tiers as well. Stay safe, y'all. Stay healthy. We'll see y'all next time. Deuces.
Deuces.